Okay, so this is what you're going to be doing. Everybody, get off your computers. You're going to need to take notes. I'm going to show you step by step on how to resize and place your photos onto a new canvas. All right, so you're welcome to type notes or write them down. It's up to you. Okay, so I believe I talked to you, correct me if I'm wrong, I talked to you about taking your image and making adjustment layers and making 12 different versions, right? We did that last period. Okay, so once you are done with that, you're going to take those 12 photos and you're going to resize them. You're going to change their dimensions. The way you'll change the dimensions is you're changing the image, so you go up to the image tab and you go to image size. Now, if you look at this image, it is made up of a lot of pixels. So it is made up of 3,072 pixels wide, okay, by 4,608 pixels in height. That's how you get megapixels. You multiply those, you get all your megapixels. This document is 10 1/4 by 15 1/3, approximately, at 300 resolution. These numbers are really important. If you are working on a website and you just want a small image, then you would lower this. A lot of images on the internet might be 800 by 600, 800 pixels by 600 pixels. So having 4,500 by 3,000 is a little much. Now, if you resize and you make it smaller, you're going to be dumping information. You're losing information from that image. It's still going to be nice and sharp, but it limits what you can do with that image. So with this image at high resolution, I could print this as a large image, 8 by 10, 11 by 14, 16 by 20. Maybe past that, it might start to get a little bit soft and pixelated. If you were to take this image and limit the amount of pixels, made it 600 by 800, something like that, you probably could not even print a 4 by 6 because you've dumped a lot of the pixels, okay? So generally speaking, we will not be resizing the photos in here very often, but I want to show you how to do it if you need to do it. You're going to be taking your images, your 12, scaling them down, and then putting them onto one canvas. The reason I'm having you scale it down is first to learn how to do it, and second is the width of this is 10 1/4 inches. We had 6 inches, you got a 60+ inch wide image. That's pretty large, so it's overkill, okay? So when you resize your image, make sure that you have all 3 of these boxes selected: scale styles, constraint proportions, and resample image. I mentioned that last period, and the student did not have the constraint proportions on, and so they look like this. They look like something like that. So as that person continued to edit their photo, I walked by and I said, looks like you swallowed about 15 watermelons and gained about 30 pounds. You're going to need to fix that. So the proportions did not scale the same, okay? So image size. Your width for your photo is going to be 3 inches. And most of you, unless you've cropped your image, the height will probably be 4.5 inches. Okay? If for some reason it's not 4.5, just leave it. The width is what's important for right now. And then your resolution needs to be at 300. It should already be at 300, but make sure it's at 300 if it's not. Okay, so just by changing that width and height, now if you look at the pixel dimensions, it's 900 by 1350. Okay, so we're basically throwing away, deleting a lot of information in this image. Right now, if we look at the top of the image, we're looking at it at 16.7%. When I hit OK, we're still looking at it 16.7%. The same image, it's just a lot smaller. So we've scaled it down. Okay? All right, so you're going to have your 12 images. You'll resize them. And then you'll need to make a new document. So we're going to go to File, select New. Your new document should be called E02, your last name, and your first initial. You're going to be making a document that has six images across and 2 rows. So each of them are 3 inches. 3 times 6, you got 18 width. Your height, each image is 4.5 inches tall, so it's going to be 9 inches in height total. Make sure that your resolution is also 300. Sometimes it defaults to 72, and your image will look completely different if you don't have the same and matching resolution. Color mode needs to be an RGB. That stands for red, green, blue. If you get really close to screens, now your parents said don't sit so close to TV. But if you get really, really close, like right here, I can see the red, green, blue. Even though this is black text, if you get really close, you can see some magenta, some green, some blue. That's what makes up your color images. So when you're looking at a monitor, it's an RGB monitor. There may be times when a student comes in and they're working and they make an image that's grayscale. So when you put your files into it, it'll be all black and white. You'll want to check your settings. Okay? All these, by the way, a lot of these, you can see up top. So for example, top left here, I have the file name. It says DSC0081. I can see it's a JPEG, the percentage that I'm looking at, as well as this is a RGB, a red, green, blue. Also an 8-bit. You want to keep it at 8-bit. And the one other thing you need to check is make sure that the pixel aspect ratio is in square pixels. Filmmaking students, when they work with Photoshop, will be using rectangular pixels, because with editing, it has a different look to it, different proportion. Okay, so 18 by 9, 300 resolution, hit OK. It'll give you a document like this. Any questions so far? Everybody good? Awake? All right, what we're going to need to do is I'm going to have you lay out your photos by using a grid. I can see my rulers, so you can see the rulers here up top and on the side. If you can't see them, you just hit Control-R. Control-R either brings up your rulers or hides your rulers. Sometimes you'll want more screen space and you want to hide it. For right now, we're going to show rulers. Control-R. So I'm going to have you create what are called guides. Okay? And the way you get guides, if you look at my cursor, it's a black arrow. And as I move over to the ruler, it'll change right when I cross the line into a white icon. Once it changes, you click and drag out a guide. I think the default is a light blue, and the students last period couldn't see it very well, so I changed the color. You have 3-inch wide images. So as you get close to the 3, it's tough to get exactly on the 3. But if you hold Shift down, Shift allows you to snap the image directly to the specific specific numbers as well as the lines. Otherwise, if I put that back, otherwise you may have your guide right in between, and it won't be precise. Okay? So holding Shift down will make the guide go exactly on the different bars. So if you get close to it, it'll actually snap. It kind of becomes magnetized. It's called snapping. And it will snap to the number that you need. Okay, so I'm going to move this over to close to 3, hold Shift, and it will snap. Don't let go of Shift until you let go of your mouse, otherwise it'll move again. Take it over to 6, let go of the mouse. So I have my columns. Now I'm going to bring down from the top to the horizontal, go to 4.5. Okay. If you want to change your guide colors, you can do that under Preferences. You go to Edit, go down to the bottom, Preferences, and there is a guides option. You can change your color, click on it. The default is kind of a color like this. Sometimes it's hard to see. All right. All right, so I have this resize image. If I want to drag it over, make sure you have your move tool, which is the black arrow. You drag and drop, and it brings in your image. And your image will kind of snap to the edges of your canvas. All right, so all your different images that are resized, you can bring them in. I think I have some other ones here. So you have your 12 different versions, okay? Once you're done, you should save this. It will save as a PSD, Photoshop document. Save it to your D drive as a PSD. But then also do a file save as. And from the save as menu, change the format to JPEG. That's the file that you're going to be turning in. The reason I'm having you save your PSD is, let's say you turn in your file and it's messed up, the layers are off, or there's something wrong. You can easily go back, open your Photoshop document, move the layers around if you need to, do any editing of those individual layers. But if you save as a JPEG, those layers are flattened and you will not be able to manipulate or move them around at all. Okay? So just have your PSD just as a backup, and then the JPEG is the one that you're going to turn in. So if I save this file, I think I talked about making sure you just save it as a 10 quality. You can hit OK. And then when you're done with this, probably finish on Wednesday, you'll go to the inbox, you go to period 6, 2013, I'll have E02. You'll have that window open, and then from your period 6, you can drag and drop the file into the folder. As a reminder, I think I mentioned this the other day, do not do file save as and try to send the file directly from Photoshop to the inbox. It'll mess things up. Okay? Are there any questions? So you'll end up at the end with a file that has your 12 images, and you should have 12 variations. Okay? When you save the JPEG, you won't have these guides. These will not show up. They're just in the Photoshop document. Well, other than that, you should turn in your exercise 1 today. And if you look at period 4, most of them did a good job. Most of them did it correctly. I do have some that turned in with a name that I have no idea whose project that is, looking at it. Also, there were some students the other period that tried to just simply change the file extension from a PSD to a JPEG. You cannot look at an orange and say you are now an apple. Okay? It doesn't work. You have to send it to the magic conversion process of Photoshop. So it has to be file, save as, and then from the format, you change it from a PSD to one of these formats. Just renaming it, because what the student did is they renamed it from PSD to JPEG just directly in their computer, and that doesn't work. Okay? So if you look at these, there are, like the top person did not name it correctly, right? It has their name and the full first name. I promise you, in 4th period, I've reminded them as many times as I've reminded you, which has been what, 5, 6, 7 times? Yes? Okay. So let's have a goal of not being period 4. Okay, period 6? You're not going to put your full name, or some random name. This is exercise 1. So you need to identify it as exercise 1, E01, your last name, your first initial. Okay? So please do that correctly. That way I can go through. See, even here at the bottom, it's E01. I think I mentioned no O's. This one doesn't have the correct information either. All right. So please be careful before you put it on the inbox. Once it's on the inbox, it locks. So if you make a mistake, I have to go in myself and delete it or change it. You cannot delete it. So make sure it's correct on your D drive first or your student drive before you turn it in. Okay? So exercise 1, you'll turn it as a PSD. Exercise 2, you'll turn it as a JPEG. Other than that, crank up some music and go to work.